This session of the conference focuses on the work of students currently enrolled in a bachelor's or master's program in architecture, art, and design. Aims to showcase the innovative work of young designers, giving them a platform to share and exchange ideas and design processes. It also encourages having meaningful conversations in academia, pushing the traditional boundaries of design and having a greater impact on the community and the place we inhabit. Desha Daresh KR is a student of RV College Architecture, Bangalore. She says that something that she has learned in the years is that one has to believe in the process, make way for realizations, and enjoy the journey without thinking about the results. She feels architecture is much more than just a building. It is a life giver and taker of ideas which have evolved by nature, culture, poetry.
Good morning, everyone. This is Desha Daresh from RV College of Architecture, Bangalore. The project title is Jenu Goodu, a dwelling where cells grow to form the hive. This thesis in architecture explores crafting of dwelling and community spaces as a community-driven initiative, thus creating a dialogue within the indigenous world and the world outside, such that the community thrives and an expression comes out of it. So over years, you can see that many indigenous communities have been displaced from the reserve forest, Nagarole Tiger Reserve, and they have been replaced to the buffer zone of the forest. And this is due to high increase in the growth of human habitation, increase in natural forest resource, and to provide development facilities that cannot be provided inside the forest. This looks at Jenu Kuruba indigenous community, their practices, their worldview, skills, and evolving them to help and build and learn as a cooperative. First, it was important to look at the place where they have been resettled already. So this is artificial landscape, and in the process of design, there has been no engagement of the community. There were no skills, knowledge, materials haven't been considered, and people don't feel that it is their land at all. Next, it was important to look at the place where they usually dwell at, which is the natural landscape. One example is Balle Forest. You can see the kind of structure, rectangular structures. Brothers of the same family live in the clusters. They use local materials too. And similar is with the Nagarhole Tiger Forest. The clustering is similar. The kind of materials and rituals are also similar. Due to COVID, it was not possible to go and document the settlement growth, but looking into the Google Earth maps from 2005 to 2017, we can see that how an enclosure was formed in the settlement growth and how the newer structures are spiraling in or branching out to form a mature clusters. And brothers of the same family live in a cluster. So indigenous African architecture was looked into and was case studied to see what are the kind of patterns that are emerging in Jenu Kuruba settlements. During the process of documentation, we came across that they use bamboo and wood for roof, and they use clay soil, cob and adobe walls. You can also see that how tarpaulin and mud blocks are also used, and standardization is slowly seeping in. We looked into the physical aspect, but architecture is also a reflection of existential meaning. So it was important to see how Jenu Kurubas perceive and conceive the world they live in. After a series of interview and documentation with Jenu Kurubas, it led to an understanding of their myths, how they identify their seasons, the kind of gods they have, and Yugadi, the spring festival, which is very important for them, the kind of dance they do, which represents season pre and post Yugadi. Shift agriculture and honey extraction is their main occupation. Their territory is bound by trees. They have vertical transmission of knowledge and skills that they have lost over time. The important ritual is Burude ritual, where they transact or they have this augmentation with their ancestors and God. Marriage and death rituals are also important. These three rituals clearly state that they have belief in regeneration and preservation, and the community is always at the center. Thus, the worldview was decoded, where the tree is the axis mundi. They believe in three worlds: the heavenly world, spiritual world, and earthly world. Their main axis is east and west. They don't distinguish between north and south. Based on the book Concept Dwelling, what is center, path, and domains for Jenu Kurubas were determined. Tree, stone, and water are the centers, axis is always east and west. Domains are sacred domains, community domains, and burial domains. How do they orient themselves to these existential meanings were important? They have these three rows of columns which represent three worlds. They don't have any windows because they believe in spirits. And also, it states that the world inside is not influenced by the world outside. And how their cluster grows over time, with the center space being the void. The kind of setting they prefer to dwell was also looked into. So if this is the natural landscape of Jenu Kuruba, similar kind of landscape have to be created on the land where they will be resettled. Earlier, just like I said, that they have been replaced to the buffer zone of Nagahole Tiger Forest. These maps can clearly show that the site was before a forest and now is just a sparse land, and it no longer belongs to the biodiversity zone. Looking into the site, looking into the green and blue networks, contours, and other factors, we can see four clear zones created on the site. Many programs were looked into. Many schemes usually look into housing, education, economy, skill development, and health. Many guidelines were also included for the project. This is program proximity development, where gradually learning space was introduced into the program, where skills and new technologies can be introduced and it could slowly seep into the community. These are a set of master plan iterations where worldview placing on the site, preserving the natural centers, creating paths, creating world inside a world, farmland as forest, and connect to the forest were addressed to. These are the series of settlement iterations where community was at the center, ritual tree placing, organic forms, mounts as territories were considered. Similar was experimented with the charcoal. This is a clip um, which shows the kind of rigor and process that went on into understanding the settlement and the kind of growth that actually happens. So these were the rough sketches that went on for 1 meter long sheet um, to understand the settlement. Um, the houses, they usually have living space on the east and cooking on the west, and slowly and gradually bathrooms and restrooms are coming into place. So this is the cluster iterations where three, four, five, or eight or nine houses form a cluster based on the family of same brothers, and they have a central space with a tree where they have the grinding stone, and the dance usually takes place during April. Next are the set of final designs. We can look at how there was a spine connecting both sides of the forest, and a grid was overlaid on the site plan. Worldview ideation, you have community at the center, which is the shared space. You have the burial ground, which is the past, and there's a small transition from the past to the ancestral and the umbrella, that is the spirit world and the heavenly world. We have introduced learning and skill area where new skills and technologies can be adopted and slowly seeps into the community. This is the green and blue overlay, such that over time, over next 10 years, the place would merge into the forest. The master plan shows how these cells actually form a hive, and they have this center space where the community ritual Burude can be practiced. The spine becomes the pollinating spine where pollinators from the forest can come into the site. This is the community ritual space where indigenous materials like elephant grass, acacia tree leaves, and bamboo, teak, and stone can be used. Three types of houses were introduced, such that such that in this option they have introduced wood, such that they can learn carpentry from the learning and skilling space, and kind of utilize that or experiment it on their houses. This is one more example where bamboo is used. This example does not have a hip roof or a gable roof, but a integrated roof. The learning space has library at the center, classrooms, and surrounded by open space where the backyard can be used as open classrooms. The classroom is double storied and well ventilated. This is the library with intermediate roof where kids can look down, and mud rolls and bamboo are used. Thus, I would like to say that architecture begins to matter when it goes beyond protecting us from elements, like Paul Goldberger said. Um, I think more than making forms or trying to come out, make new forms, it is important to understand what is already existing and see what are these small things that really add to the design. So emphasis has to be given on creating mental space. How would they look at this design space? Mm, I think that is really important. Thank you.
Neha Harish is a recent graduate from Avi College of Architecture. She shares a deep passion for architectural travel, which draws her closer to exploring contextual and collectively driven architectural endeavors. Other than architecture, she also practices Carnatic music and is also a basketball player. Welcome, Neha. Over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to thank everybody here at the Design United team for giving me this wonderful opportunity and platform to actually present my work. And I think the theme of small measures and great impact really is very a befitting term for the small yet the very important role that we all hold in today's world. And I'd like to begin my presentation by quoting René Dubos's words. He says, human diversity makes tolerance more than a virtue, it makes it a requirement for survival. And the reason for prefacing my presentation with these words is because of how ever increasingly the world is getting divided in terms of its social, political, as well as its environmental concerns. And human memory is known to be closely related to the place that a person once inhabited. But what happens to these relations with the natural, physical, as well as its sociological context in the event of a forced migration? This is the question that the project tries to answer by exploring the architectural implications of the feeling of placelessness and the loss of identity by highlighting the connections between architecture, place, as well as living memory. The focal point of the project lies in spatializing disjunction through architecture. During events involving ethnic cleansings as well as forced migrations, people don't always look for architectural expertise or professional aid to find shelter, which is why there's a need for a more permanent ethical solution beyond the present means of emergency aid in the form of just curated shelters. This is a similar situation that took place after the civil war of Sri Lanka, where the genocide was the reason for many of the people to actually emigrate to their neighboring countries, while also the grievances around systemic prejudice that led to the civil war still remain unaddressed to this day. And this post colonial condition spills the situation out across borders, only widening the issue of marginalization from their homelands to that of the land of a host. The project, therefore, places due consideration and importance over the sensitization of humans towards these brazen incidents to provide an architectural consciousness in order to avoid the repetition of such similar brutal histories. For a person constantly under the state of refuge and disjunction in an unknown environment, his or her solace lies in their memories of home. Therefore, the project looks at questioning the need for a critical memory of such a brazen incident, but on the host soil. The site of intervention lies in the heart of Chennai city, abutting the Kuvam River. The site, as seen in the diagram, sits alongside a very active urban corridor of the city, and therefore calls for the induction of the critical memory of the same condition of society. Therefore, the site becomes important in positioning this narrative to sort of ensure its easement into the everyday consciousness of people. Comprehending an event such as a genocide and attempting at prevention of the same or such histories from ever repeating themselves really lies in research, which is the core understanding of this project as well. And therefore, the project tried to form sort of interconnections between knowledge of these events and the act of remembrance in order to open up a discourse on tolerance. This led to the project being realized in four main components of importance, and that being recollection in the form of a museum, prevention in the form of a genocide research center, remembrance of events of matter, as well as realization of empathy through a landscape of topographies that were involved in the story of terror, but also of hope. The entire conceptual premise of the project um, lays in the induction of the critical memory. Therefore, the project tries to capture the vast polarities of the story through the abstraction of the war bunkers, that is being symbolic of the disorientation, the discomfort, and the disjunction that the people experienced, and the forests of Wani in Kilinochchi in northern Sri Lanka, which served as a place of hope during these hardships. The main point of conceptual association lies in the abstraction of these war bunkers, which serve as a place of refuge, and also, most importantly, serve as active remnants of the same structural condition of society by being part of uh, the urban narrative in northern Sri Lanka, even to this day. The varyingly sized bunkers are used to form a repetitive sequence along the grid, forming a labyrinthine or the bed of bunkers, the repetition allowing for the experience to range from a collective one to being of a much more singular experience. Along the design grid and evocative of the idea of the bunker in the ground, the museum actually spatializes the narrative of struggle, acting as a connecting link between the act of remembrance and the process of critical analysis of these events, sits the memorial component of the project in the form of a hall of remembrance that provides advocacy to all the unidentified faces of war. Being built on a foundation of testimonials that see the light of day, the research center rises above the ground in its non archetypal fashion. And lastly, the journey that a person of genocidal refuge takes is represented through the different topographies of terror and of hope, forming the language of the landscape above the ground. The entry level plan actually sees the archetypal language of the same above the ground, reinforcing the design grid, its components being the bunkers of the varying size, forming a labyrinthine of movement above the ground, while also providing access to the subterranean spaces. On the subterranean level, the exhibition spaces are arranged on either side of the central liminal space that is lit up through the bunkers above that act as skylights as well as visual connectors between the two levels. The southern edge of the museum is flanked by the Hall of Remembrance that sits at a connecting crux between the museum as well as the research wing. The following transepts as well as the visualizations show the entire design experience throughout the project. The transept showcases the experience through the same bed of bunkers while establishing that relationship between the urban corridor as well as the river edge on the other side, while also humanizing the experience. The tactile as well as the environmental considerations were equally important for material selection. And the diagrams highlight the different uses of the bunkers that are used as seating, landscape containers, habitual volumes, as well as skylights for the naturally lit museum spaces underneath, as seen in this drawing. The project was intended to begin a foundation of research and preliminary studies into the relationship between conflict, placelessness, as well as architecture. By exploring the role of placelessness in architecture, disjunction of the present was attempted to be addressed through the imposition of the need for the same critical memory of brazen events of such order in order to provide a small but a necessary platform of discourse on empathy, tolerance, as well as inclusion. Thank you.
We'll next move on to our third presenter in this session, Tarum and Team. They are a team of 5 students who worked on a course project called Design for Social Change at their university, Indus Valley School of Arts and Architecture, based in Karachi. A social cause that they deeply felt was becoming more prevalent as well as ignored was the level of drug abuse in the youth of Pakistan. As graphic designers belonging to different minors like film, photography, and illustration, they banded together to construct an experimental virtual journey of decision making and ethics in hopes to start a conversation and bring light to this issue.
Hi everyone, my name is Valerie, and as you heard, with me I have Taram, and today we're going to be presenting our project called Dum Mari Dum. So we basically we're a group of five artists, designers, photographers, filmmakers. We worked on, we had one of our studios on design for social change. And we thought drug abuse was an incredibly important topic to talk about, especially within the youth of Pakistani society. We felt like drug abuse, everyone over here has been affected by it with drug abuse, and we feel like it's not talked about enough. So these are some of the articles that came out recently over the years, of how much drug abuse is prevalent in Karachi especially, and how much drug abuse affects not only the abusers themselves, but their families, their co-workers, their friends, their teachers, and also just how real life this problem is. So, according to research, there are 9 million drug addicts in Pakistan, out of which 2 million of those are within the age limit of 15 to 25, 15 to 25, the age bracket. And the thing about this age bracket is that, especially with 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, they're going through puberty. So it's already such a difficult time, for teenagers. And then the added pressure of society, and then the added pressure of, all of these things that that people expect of them. These kids, they fall into peer pressure very easily. So that is one of the main insights of our campaign is peer pressure. And one thing that we wanted to highlight was that we didn't want our campaign to just be like a say no to drugs, drugs is bad, or anything like that. We wanted it to be unique. So the big idea of our entire campaign is this is what your future will look like. We wanted kids to know that if you use drugs, is what will happen to you. We wanted them to kind of we wanted like a switch to kind of flip in their heads. So we thought, let's do an interactive campaign in schools, reaching out to different schools, working with teachers, parents, admin, everyone. But then um, COVID happened, and it kind of threw us off, because we had this presentation in sorry we worked on this project in early March, and COVID happened. So all of our ideas and all of our plans about working closely with students and parents completely changed. And COVID kind of COVID kind of forced us into reevaluating our project, and taking advantage of social media as an ally to reach out to more kids. Because another thing that we kind of realized that our target audience exists on social media, they thrive on social media. So we used Instagram as our platform to launch this campaign. So what the strategy that we used for our campaign is called co-development. We thought that it would be extremely interesting for our target audience to generate content for us, to kind of share their stories, engage with our content, and just, like start a conversation. We wanted our campaign to act as a friend to all of those kids in need, or all of those kids who might face peer pressure. So we had four main deliverables. First, we created a choose your own adventure story through Instagram. So how it worked was you would go to we would link to an Instagram story, and then you would have two options, and then it would link to another Instagram page, and then another Instagram page, and that's how we kind of created a choose your own adventure story through Instagram itself. Apart from that, we also did story challenges that kids could put up on their stories, tag their friends. We designed a face filter, and we also designed Instagram stickers and wallpapers. So, coming to the crux of our project, our entire campaign is called Dum Mare Dum. We kind of it's a play on a famous Indian song from 1971. The original lyric is called Dum Maro Dum, but by tweaking the lyrics a little bit, we kind of made the first dum representing drug use and the second one representing our lives. So we're kind of saying, like drug use can kill you or it is harmful for your life. So dum mare dum. So now Tarum is gonna take over and take you through all of our deliverables.
Hello. So choose your own adventure, which was the one core deliverable, actually the heart of our project. It is a game we designed with multiple endings that got published on Instagram in late March. And by giving an interactive virtual experience to our users, we wanted them to choose their own identity, and through that they can come face to face with the real life challenges that they will have to come across regarding exposure to drugs and what it might entail. So as you can see, this is the frame timeline of our game. It starts from a simple text that our user gets an invitation to a party, and they have the option to either say yes or no. And with that first choice, you get to experience all these other scenarios, very related to the person themselves. So since our target audience was school going college kids, we designed scenarios that are most related to them. They end up when they're choosing their destiny one by one, where they are going from post to post, they end up in a party, a shady hall, or stopped by the police for doing something illegal, or they are being approached by their friends with drugs, and they have the choice. Always have the choice to either say yes or no, and with that they end up with in certain situations they either end up safely at home, or they either end up failing their exam because they weren't where they weren't studying, or they sometimes do end up dead, which these are some of these are 8 of the 36 illustration series that comprise of our whole campaign. So as you can see, the color scheme and the illustrations, we want it to be as attractive to our age, our target audience as it can. And with the different scenarios and with different decision making, we wanted them to be as vigilant and as responsive towards our virtual experience. So after our core deliverable, we have four collateral and secondary deliverables. First one being an Insta Story tag challenge, which primarily to gain clout and audience on our platform, and to have them involved and actually generate content for us. These are custom designed bingo challenges for different sorts of kids. So the first one being 20 fun things to do instead of drugs is basically encouraging them and a sort of positive reinforcement. The second one, drug-free challenge, is someone who is trying to quit their addiction. And the third one being a general drug-free bingo challenge with um, you can play it with your friends and tag them to basically generate more content. A face filter we thought was very pertinent to add into this campaign since it does get a lot of attraction on Instagram. We want it to be based off of real life examples of drug abusers. So by engaging with them, we really wanted to put a mirror in front of their existence as to what their decision of turning towards hard drugs can do to their facial and their physical appearance. So this is the filter that we designed. These are real. So we studied a lot of before and after images and articles of what a drug addict can go through physically. So by really making it a little grotesque to a certain extent, we aim to be as not preachy but as confrontational as possible, as Valerie said, that this is what your future will look like. Our last deliverable is a small interaction element. By designing wallpapers and stickers, we aim to interact with our audience more and to reach a higher level of users. These are some of so as Dammare Dam was also a reiteration of a South Asian song lyric. We wanted to include some of the something more of it. So the first wallpaper talking about chhod do aachal zamana kya kahega. So basically a reimagined scenario where you should probably quit drugs, or what are people going to say. And this lyric is from India, and our this lyric "Chal Dil Mere Chhodiye Phere" is a Pakistani songwriter. So basically bringing in these real song lyrics to redefine their meanings towards our approach. These are some of the cute sticker pack are designed by our very own Valerie Rodriguez to so our audience can interact with it as much as they want and make it more fun than it usually is. So we didn't keep our project just to limited to our studio. We actually did launch it in late March, and these are four of the 50, 60, 70 screenshots that we received through the time span of 3 days. Our Instagram is at Dammaredam. Our game is still available for people to experience, and the response that we received was really overwhelming, and it actually did add to our understanding of what social media can do. Thank you. We are Team Dammaredam.